essentially what we're building up to is that the Knicks either have to find homes for all of these veterans, in which case, with maybe one or two exceptions, there's not someone coming back in the deal that has to play minutes or that the Knicks like deem worthy of playing minutes for their team. Or they just keep these guys here and they say to Derrick Rose, Derrick, you've been a great player in this league, won an MVP. Congratulations. You're going to go sit on the bench and not get up and play. First of all, it's not going to happen under this coach. Second of all, like, you're not going to do that to Derrick Rose. Like, Derrick Rose at that point would ask for a buyout. And as we've discussed many times, like, the Knicks aren't going to do that. That's not what they do. So there's just so many things pointing to some sort of consolidation here that doesn't involve just the veterans. We're not saying, maybe you are saying, I don't think you're saying this, that like you're going to see like all of these kids gone or like a bunch of like, I just, the notion that all of these young players are going to be here with roles in the rotation to start next season. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
It's not. And I think here's the other thing to talk about, because again, I see a world where Immanuel Quickley, who did an incredible job at the end of the season and should have been starting long before. I see a world where he's not the starting point guard, because again, you have to trade Julius Randle somewhere, assuming they do, even if it's like for a center, everything we've heard about is like, well, what are the Knicks going to do? And maybe they do bump him up to the starting position. I think that would be great. But I'm trying to protect Immanuel Quickley. And the reason I'm trying to protect Immanuel Quickley is because as the Knicks keep attracting more talent and turn like the rotation pieces we're talking about that can't be here long-term and trying to flip them to something, if you get better talent, then maybe you can actually spare a player like Immanuel Quickley in a larger trade, right? But it doesn't come across that way, unfortunately, and it sucks because it feels like I don't want IQ to succeed. I do. Like, I just saw Alec Burks. We all did. We saw Alec Burks play for 34 minutes a game from the All-Star break to the end of the season. And yes, did some of those games that like the last 10 games of Immanuel Quickley skew some of the results? For sure. But we also saw Immanuel Quickley play like 28 minutes a game, 27 minutes a game. That's great. His season average was like 22. That's too low. But I look at Quickley and I look at him. I don't see him as a sixth man. And I know that there's a whole funny discourse about that. I see him as someone who has greater potential, who next year can thrive in that Derrick Rose role of like 26 minutes a game, 27 minutes a game, where he's still getting ample time and responsibility. It's just that there is a player ahead of him that you had to get because you traded Julius Randle and you wanted to keep Mitchell Robinson.
He could play the role. I mean, Brunson started a ton of games for Dallas, but he could play the role that Brunson kind of was playing last year for Dallas. Right. Which is
absolutely good.
Yeah. No, I mean, and again, you're getting, you want for him to continue getting meaningful opportunities to continue to grow and get better. You want him to get a certain amount of time every game. You want him to get a certain amount of usage. And if he gets it to a point where he basically forces his way into a higher role, then that's a great problem to have. And I don't think the Knicks are going to do anything this summer to block that possibility. I'll just say that. I think it'll be open.
What, in terms of him starting? Or
in terms of him playing himself into like, wow, we have to, he has like, again, I don't know what's going to happen with Immanuel Quickley, but if he continues to play so well, where he forces himself into that role, I think they're not going to do anything that would block him from that.
Right. Again, it's just the cost of doing business where you want to get rid of Julius Randle. If you don't trade him for a center, if you're not trading Evan Fournier, then like you have to get something back that is of value. And like, it makes sense why they would consider doing a point guard. But I would love to see Immanuel Quickley start and have Deuce McBride back him up. But with the Derrick Rose situation, I know that there's the idea of, well, Tibbs is here, so the Knicks aren't going to trade him. We talked about the fact that Tibbs is saying, maybe I should have played the young players more.
Yeah.
He knows that at the end of the day, as much as he loves Derrick Rose, if it's between him keeping his job and Derrick Rose being dealt to a contender for matching salary, I think he's going to say, Derrick, I love you. Go chase a ring.
And Derrick might want to do that.
Yeah. And why is it that we have to basically not even hope Derrick Rose gets injured? It's the expectation, right? He hasn't been his healthy self, and he's a great mentor, but you don't also have to like pay $14 million to sit on the bench and be a mentor. You can also have other players. Like I have Taj Gibson slotted in here. Maybe he comes back. He's just a filler at this point from the name standpoint. But like, even if you have a veteran like Taj Gibson who's there, you could do something with that. It's not wanting Derrick Rose to not be here. It's wanting to see the younger players thrive and wanting to see Derrick Rose do something for himself. And he is in himself an obstacle. And when you look at the vets and with what Leon Rose was saying, we can't just say, hey, I love this vet, so I want to keep them. And Leon Rose isn't talking about that player. If you trade Derrick Rose for matching salary in return and a pick of some sort, then we're talking about, okay, well, you still turned that trade that was Dennis Smith Jr. in a second round pick, and Derrick Rose, which got you a playoff berth, and then he got hurt, but then you turned Derrick Rose into something else. Like that's good business. If the timeline is the young core, we can't be disingenuous and say, well, no, keep Derrick Rose at all costs. It's just, they're two different windows, and we got to focus on the one that's the long-term focus. And it's just not Derrick Rose. Just not.
I completely agree with you. It'll be sad to see him go if, in fact, he does go. But again, I just want to acknowledge, as of now, we have Rose going out, Burks going out, Noel going out, Randall going out, potentially for a starting point guard, and Walker going out. That's a lot of money going out.
That's 5 players. Yeah, and here's the other thing, right? We are missing a glaring spot in power forward position, and we haven't accounted for the 2022 first round pick. Let's just, like in my mind, I think it's probably going to be a 3-4 like Cam was, like Tari Eason, like the example of a player who, because let's face it, Quentin Grimes was out of the rotation last year. This player is also going to be out of the rotation
to start the year. I think
start the year, probably assuming everyone's healthy. So we're still missing this like power forward spot. There are 2 ways you go. Number one, like if you, let's say they don't do the sign Mitchell Robinson route and they get a center instead, then it's certainly more fascinating.
For Randall, let's say they trade Randall for a center is what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. And then you've like consolidate these pieces and it's for a starting point guard. And you have a glaring spot at the 4. Like the obvious thing for a lot of Knicks fans would be like, hey, play the young player. And I'm just going to say it. If the Knicks have an open position at the 4 and they want to get another veteran in there and they don't want to pay a lot for him, like, it's Melo, man. Like, think about it. They've gone after him twice. I'm not saying like it's guaranteed. All I'm saying is that if Randall's traded and there is no backup 4 from consolidation and there is no 4 that Randall is traded for in return, like, can't you just see a world where Obi Toppin's playing 28 to 30 minutes and Carmelo Anthony is soaking up the other ones? Because the comments that he said when Lakers season ended, where it was like, I don't really care about chasing a championship, I just want to be happy. I'm sitting there thinking like, this man is clearly saying, I just want to roll next year. And we know that the Knicks have gone after him both years. And it never made sense because you had Randall and you had Obi. And if you're trading Randall and you have Obi and you have a backup 4 spot, it's clear as day.
Hell yeah. If the Knicks are successfully able to trade Randall, I will give me even odds. I'll bet that Melo's a Knick next year. But they have to trade Randall first.
100%. So this is essentially where we've gotten, right? Because you can fill out the last 2 spots. Like one of them is going to be from trading another player, or maybe it's a traded player exception and the Knicks don't take anyone in return and then somehow. But I want to now talk about like the zeroing in of consolidation, right? So let's just say let's explore this, right? Like it's a point guard who is acquired in the Randall trade: Fournier, Barrett, Toppin, Robinson, and then your backup 5 is Quickly, Grimes, Reddish. It's going to be someone, Melo or another player I'll talk about, and Jericho Sims. Like right there, you are running out 7 guys who are under the age of 25, 6 of them who are on their rookie contracts.
It's pretty good.
We're doing something here, right? We're making moves and things are shaking. And then you always put the 2022 second round pick into the other 2-way spot and re-sign Baron Hunt. Maybe you have him, as a minimum contract guy, whatever it is. But I just want to walk it piece by piece, right? So let's just delete Arcidiacono again. Ryan, congrats. Sorry. And then let's take out Julius Randle and just assume that the salary component is a point guard who's making matching money.
That's fair.
So we now are left with these 4 veterans that are out of the rotation. Well, 2 of them at least. And you're kind of wondering, like, how do they go about this? What even makes sense? Let's start with Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose in a contender makes so much sense. And I hope for his sake, again, that is what happens. let's say he's traded to a team like, I don't know, like the Clippers or something. It's just any team where you can either get matching salary back, or it's a 3-team deal where the Knicks don't get matching salary back, but instead get a really nice traded player exception of like $14 million or somewhere in that ballpark. That would be the most ideal. Can we just say that and then kind of strike Rose from the record?
It would. Yes, I remain slightly skeptical that they will find a home for Rose in that manner as easily as we are suggesting here. But we could do that for right now.
I just feel like, based on, if you have a team that needs more point guard play, that wants exactly, but like won't rely on Derrick Rose to the level where the Knicks relied on him in the 2020-21 season, he's a perfect fit.
No, I completely agree. Listen, I agree in theory. It makes a absolute metric ton of sense. I'm not. I want to see the team that trades for that salary and it like either has a bad expiring salary and that's the other part of it, right?
I got an idea. What about like trading him to a team like the Phoenix Suns, where yes, you have campaign, but you also have the third backup being Alfred Payton, or fourth backup. I mean, they're Aaron Holiday, whatever it is. Like, they clearly could use an upgrade in terms of like last resort. You have him on a contender. He still will see ample playing time, or at least he should. If anyone goes down, because Chris Paul's getting older, you have some insurance there. They've got Jay Crowder on an expiring contract. They've got Dario Saric on an expiring contract. They could send either of those guys anywhere. The Knicks could take them. Like, that's the mindset I'm thinking.
Saric is a possibility.
Right.
That's very, that's true.
At least we can kind of eliminate him from everything going on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Moment. So now the Knicks have Kemba Walker, Nerlens Noel, and Alec Burks. 3 players. And if we go to our other sheet and we just kind of do the math, right, and see how much they're making, it's basically, well, one, not RJ Barrett. That is not what we want to do.
Can I give you one more fake Rose one?
Sure, go for it.
While you're doing this?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Sacramento for Richaun Holmes.
Well, number one, Richaun Holmes has a domestic violence case.
He does.
That's pending. I really want nothing to do with.
I don't either.
2, I feel terrible the idea of sending Derrick Rose to Sacramento. Number
they probably
3,
wouldn't do that.
I don't think they'd do it because they seem to be better in the point guard department between Fox and Davion, and yeah, they could maybe use some depth, but I just don't think he's the best place. I'd probably want to send Richaun Holmes elsewhere and then have something coming back.
I would be okay with that.
All right. So these 3, Kemba Walker, Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks, they're making $28.4 million next season.
It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. So then you get to the question of like, well, what players are even out there that make sense? What do you do? And here's the thing. I have an idea in mind. I actually have a preference in mind, but I know a lot of fans are not going to like it.
Do you? My goodness, I can't wait to see where this is going to go.
Well, I think you know where it is because you actually have a similar thought process as well. And like, what if I told you that the Knicks could basically use those 3 players to acquire what is essentially a ghost for 40% of the season and potentially get something in return for taking on that ghost bloated contract? Be pretty nice. Even if they didn't have the sweetener, it'd still be a way of consolidating and finding ways to then stay above the salary cap in 2023, having an expiring contract even. And
what? What ghost are we talking about?
You don't necessarily do this for this reason, but it is very much reported that Tom Thibodeau was interested in acquiring this player not too long ago.
Oh, you think they're going to do this?
I think they're going to do this. So let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets. Let's talk about the Hornets and Gordon Hayward. And I know a lot of people are thinking, well, let's do Hayward goes to, it's like a Hayward, Randall, Russ type deal. And maybe it is, but there's a lot of things going on with the Hornets. And I just want to take a second to dissect it because it actually is relevant. And the reason for that is the Hornets are likely to have to pay Miles Bridges, and they're probably going to have to pay him a max contract.
They will have to pay him a max contract.
Here's the thing about Michael Jordan. He is the greatest player of all time. He is maybe the worst. owner of all time, and he is incredibly cheap. And here's what I see when I look at the Charlotte Hornets. I see a team of like maybe five and a half guys who are NBA ready right now. And when you have LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, Terry Rozier, Kelly Oubre, if you want him because he's on a non-guaranteed or partially guaranteed. Same with Mason Plumlee. You have to pay PJ Washington. I don't know how they can trust James Bouknight. They also now have their own pick, the 13th pick, and because the Pelicans got into the playoffs, they got the 15th pick from them. So Michael Jordan is going to have to deal with an outrageous bill, not necessarily this year, but in 2 years. Yeah. But next year. And actually, here's the thing. As I look at this is not covering. Oh, no, it is. No, we're good. We're good. Here's the thing. The Pelicans, it's the wrong team.
Same difference.
The Hornets. Yes, exactly. The Hornets are above the salary cap most likely, or they're in that range where it's like the Knicks where they gain some space, but it really doesn't matter. Trez is gone. If you listen to his postgame, how for the umpteenth time he complains about the role that he was cast in, like he's out.
I agree.
They missed Gordon Hayward for like 30 plus games, 30 games, something like that, almost a lot. It was a lot of games they missed, and he wasn't in the plan. And they got embarrassed by the Hawks. Just absolute disgusting matter.
Yeah, but I don't know if that was because of Gordon Hayward's absence.
It was not. Yeah. It wasn't. They are a team that needs some sort of change. And the reason I bring up Gordon Hayward is because if you're not going to count on him, and if he's making so much money that then you eventually wind up in the luxury tax world. Like I'm not talking about this season. They're fine this year. It's next year when they're paying Hayward and Rozier and Miles Bridges, and they've probably re-signed Kelly Oubre, and maybe they have Mason Plumlee there too because they need a center and they don't really have one that's ready. It's PJ Washington. He's going to get a raise.
By the way, Oubre, we should just note, extension eligible, and I know he's only making 12 and you can only sign for 120% of your current amount. I wouldn't completely rule that out.
I wouldn't either. That's the thing. It's like if you're trying to become a deeper team, and Charlotte should, you have to figure out a way to do that.
You got to make LaMelo happy.
You have to.
Otherwise, he's going to be the next guy that everyone's going to be rumored, is leaving.
100%. And so that's where Gordon Hayward just doesn't really make sense for them. And like, if you're looking at the Knicks, I want to be clear. Gordon Hayward, when he's playing,
he's very good. He's very good.
He's incredible from mid-range, which ironically is where Julius takes a ton of his shots and doesn't do well at them. So you can have
Gordon Hayward actually hits his.
He actually hits them. But he's this like blend of a player where, like I said, you don't have to count on him because you know he's going to miss time. And if he does miss time, it's convenient because, as I said, like if you get a Tari Eason type who's going to see minutes at the 4, like you could do that. Gordon Hayward has even seen more minutes at the 4 as time has gone on because he's really he at least entering the league was a 2-3. You could still play him at the 4. Same thing with Cam, where it's like, yes, maybe he's probably seen as more of a 3, but he and Hayward could also be more interchangeable. And you could then have him, hopefully, I mean, it's Tibbs, right? So you're thinking, well, maybe Gordon Hayward's going to start ahead of Obi. I certainly hope not, but it's the sort of thing where I think that they're going to prioritize Obi Toppin and they're going to look at Gordon Hayward and be like, you need to basically help our second unit. You need to be the anchor. And that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like, you're consolidating your roster. You're getting a better piece. The hope here would also be that you get the 15th pick overall, because again, like this is the luxury tax line. They're over it projected right now. That's not where they're going to be. Michael Jordan is going to make sure that doesn't happen. And why is it so important? Okay, let's delete Gordon Hayward's contract right now for $31 million, 31.5 next year, and a little over 30 this year. And then you can also, I've hidden these numbers, but I'm going to bring them up.
Oh, wow. That was like magic. If you're not watching, you're really missing out. We've just transformed Gordon Hayward like magic into Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, and Kemba Walker on the Hornets cap sheet.
And so look at this, right? Even if you guarantee Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel the following year for 2023, that's $10 million that you've saved, which means you now have a lot more cushion with the luxury tax, with the luxury tax line.
More cushion for the pushing, baby.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If you don't even want Nerlens Noel, boom, he's gone. You're even better off if you're Charlotte. And then the one thing, and yes, I'll turn over to you in a second.
Yeah.
Basically, the advantage if you're Charlotte is you're turning $31.5 million next year into what could honestly be $10.5 million with Alec Burks, because you then bring back Kemba Walker. You need
if you even want him on the books for that.
Well,
yeah.
But here's the thing. What, Alec Burks or
Kemba? For Alec Burks, because you don't have to have him on. You don't have to have any of these books on the salaries on the books for 2023.
But it's good to have a secondary ball handler that you can rely on.
Well,
who isn't going to cost you like luxury tax payments, and then you waive Nerlens Noel and decline his team option, and then Kemba, if you want to keep him, you can just
bring him back on the veteran
on a veteran minimum. Yeah. And if you look at what Charlotte struggled with this past year, it was the backup point guard spot. They had Isaiah Thomas out there and he was negligible. But if you have Kemba Walker there, it's a fan favorite who gets, because this is a business, you still get people in the seats, and you have Kemba in the role that he honestly was destined to be in and probably should have been in New York, which is coming off the bench.
I got to tell you, my initial reaction is like, they're not going to trade Gordon Hayward for spare parts. That is the incorrect reaction. This is actually literally, this is genius by you.
We'll see if they actually do it, but thank you. It checks off all the boxes that you could imagine. Right? So
here's the thing. What does Charlotte need? You just said they need a backup point guard position spot. They get that in Kemba Walker, because Terry Rozier should never be playing point guard for any team anywhere.
He's a shooting guard.
They need at least an option that as a rim protector, which they did not have this year at all. They just didn't have it. Mason Plumlee, very nice year for them. Does some nice things. Not what they need for that particular team. And obviously Trez, as you talked about, that's not his role. So they get that in Nerlens Noel. And in Alec Burks, he is the poor man's Gordon Hayward. Like,
yes.
Can Gordon Hayward run point? Yes. It doesn't mean he's good at it or great at it, but like he can do it just like Alec Burks can run point if you absolutely need him to in a pinch. He does a lot of the things that Hayward does. He could slot right into that Hayward role there. And the other thing that's really nice about this is if you just look up and down at all the names, yes, there are some young players on Charlotte's roster that would get squeezed out here, but guess what? They clearly had no issue doing that this year. And I'm not terribly certain they would have an issue doing that again. It really does set up very nicely for them because you get your starting lineup with LaMelo, Terry Rozier, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, and who knows, maybe Nerlens Noel starts for them.
Well, because they have Kai Jones still in the books, but he's not ready to take that leap to being a starter, which is why you can ease his way into it by being a backup five
exactly.
and have Nerlens Noel starting. And Nerlens Noel's hands look like crap. But the irony is that even though they look terrible, he's actually been fantastic around the rim outside of the season because he's been broken for like the last 4 years. He finishes really nicely. It just doesn't look like it.
He was better around the rim in his last year in Oklahoma City than Mitch was during the same year in New York. And so then you have Burks, Walker, Kelly Oubre Jr., and maybe Book Knight's ready by that point. McDaniels is there too. Cody, like you have a real bench.
Yes. And here's where
makes a lot of sense, Jeremy.
Here's where the money then comes in. Let's say they even keep Nerlens Noel, right? And let's say they get rid of Plumlee's cap hold.
For 23-24, now you're talking about.
Right? Look at it. Like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Like there are no roster charges.
No.
Look at this. We're down to $24.6 million away from the luxury tax line before signing PJ Washington. When we started this with Gordon Hayward on the books, they were I think it was $4 million over it. So this has saved them $28 million before we do some other tinkering. They're going to be fine financially. This fixes them. It gets them deeper as a team, and the money is fixed in a pinch. And then, of course, if it comes down to like, if you're the Knicks, ideally you're taking this pick, the 15th pick. That's the cost of doing business because the Knicks can say it's like, look, we're taking on the risk of having to have Gordon Hayward's $31.5 million on the books. And that's pretty rough. And it absolutely is, but it plays into the Knicks' advantage of, again, if they want to be an over-the-cap team, you're talking about more salary at your disposal. And it's like, you want an expiring Gordon Hayward's contract where you can just get out of it and you can get a good player when he actually plays. perfect. We can move picks. Young player. We can bring in a star that we want to do it. That's the vehicle for how it gets done.
In regards to so here's the only thing, I don't think either of us think that the Knicks want to roster 2 first-round picks this year.
You're getting exactly where I was going to go next, but continue.
I'll save that for a second. Just before we close the Hayward loop, because I can't speak highly enough about that you thought of this, because I'm legitimately jealous that you came up with this. It's worth pointing out something Mark Stein reported in his newsletter. I think it was today, actually, because he had reported last week the notion of a Hayward for Westbrook construction. There would have to be a little bit more money, I think, going out for Charlotte. He pushed back on his own reporting today, noting that the Lakers, if they move Westbrook, are going to want to gain some financial flexibility in terms of having more fun, like 2 or 3 salaries, as opposed to like this one mammoth salary that's just that matzo ball that'd be sitting there.
Nice.
See, we're continuing with the trend.
There's so many Easter eggs going on over here.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Multi-faith. But we got to go fast, you know?
Jesus Christ, you're killing me. He didn't say this explicitly, but the undertone of it was like, Gordon Hayward is still a name. And like when he's on the court, he is still good. But I think we need to kind of embrace the fact that like he is I don't want to say he's a toxic asset, but nobody wants that contract. It's not a good, like, it's a contract that like the Hornets are not going to find takers for this summer and get something like good. Like, that's why my initial reaction was wrong. Like, this isn't like, oh, they're going to give Gordon Hayward for, like, yeah, they'd be happy, I think, to get these parts for Gordon Hayward. My only pushback for you is, I think if Gordon Hayward comes here, I would have a tough time seeing Tibbs being like, you're going to run our backup unit. Maybe he does. Maybe he surprises us.
100%. And I think that's the one thing that kind of, if I had to hammer one point home with Knicks fans, I'd like to think this is a solution to a lot of what we want. I don't think there's going to be a point where we get exactly what we want when everyone's healthy. But when it's Gordon Hayward, I'm not exactly banking on him to be healthy. So, but you want to talk about like if the Knicks got the 15th pick overall for the cost of doing business, because they are trading, 3 rotation pieces when they're in the right roles for one bloated contract that goes on for far longer. Like getting 15, I mean, a 13 would be nice too, but let's say it's 15. Let's be generous here for Charlotte. 11 and 15, you use those to package up to something like 7, 8, if you can find a taker.
Maybe. Yeah.
But then when you're at 7 or 8, what are you willing to give up to get to maybe 5? Maybe you can even get to 4. And then you're talking about like, are you giving up a Dallas pick? Are you giving up any of these young players? Like,
are you giving up Cam Reddish?
Setting yourself into a way, right? You're setting yourself up to potentially get a player higher in the draft that you wanted. And I just think that if Gordon Hayward helps you get out of the, like, if he helps you consolidate, and if he helps you get further up in the draft than you wanted, it's a win-win.
I think Leon Rose at the end of the day is a salesman. And I think he knows that if he moves on from Julius Randle this summer and they kind of center this thing around RJ and Obi and whether quickly starting or not, I think he's going to be able to sell that to fans. He'll sell it to me very easily. He's not going to have to try. Like, I'll buy that.
I just did.
So even if they did this trade and Hayward was starting, like if it's alongside RJ, if he's in between the RJ and the Obi sandwich there, even if Quickly's coming off the bench, if you got Grimes there too, Cam is your backup 3. But although no, Fournier would be the backup 3 in that case. But like, maybe again, whatever it is, maybe they move on from Cam. I think I'm a little bit more open to them potentially moving on from Cam this summer than some people. I think it's possible, just because of some of the stuff that was already reported.
Exactly.
Anyway,
yeah. No,
yeah. So okay, so you were going to close the loop on something.
No, just in terms of the picks where
we did. Okay. We talked about that. Okay, great.
So, I mean, like if you're watching, like this is hypothetically, what it is. And then this pick doesn't even have to be a power forward, right? If you're moving up, it could be a 3, it could be a 2, it could be the best talent available. Although my guess is if you've also moved up into the top 10, you're probably not taking Ty Washington. So it's probably going to be a wing or a guard of some sort. And you've got plenty of guards and you could use some more wings. So it's like, I understand that a point guard that you've acquired when you traded for Julius Randle, Fournier, Barrett, Toppin, Robinson, and then quickly Grimes, Reddish, Hayward, Sims isn't like the most ideal lineup or 10-man rotation for those of you who are listening to this. But I just feel as though you're able to kind of have your cake and eat it too, in that you get a lot of the vets who are taking up room that the younger players would need to have, and you get to play the younger players. You're consolidating into a guy who you know is not going to be accountable. The point guard may not even be someone who's the most healthy either, but we'll get into that too. Who knows? It makes so much sense to me to do that. And like, I've thought about it so much to the point where I feel like I'd almost be mad if they didn't do this type of move. It doesn't even have to be Gordon Hayward. Like the Hornets are just an example. It's my ideal one, but there's so many other, not so many, but there are enough other deals.
I was going to say like
that I was talking about earlier with those 10 names or so, where you could start to get a little bit more creative and do something like this.
To me, Hayward is by far the most obvious name to do this sort of deal, because if you look at the other salaries on the league of guys who are making like that, like, yeah, you have like a Kevin Love out there, but like, I don't see the Cavs doing something like this because they have a little bit more of a stacked rotation. You never know, possible,
Maybe.
But I wouldn't, I'd be a little bit surprised if they did something like that. Like there's just not, I don't think there's a ton of names. The Celtics seem to be doing pretty well without Horford right where he is. Hayward is the one, man. I think Hayward's the one. It makes sense. It makes sense on a lot of levels.
And if you're moving Derrick Rose, as we talked about in this scenario, you say to Tibbs, like, here's the bad news. Move Derrick Rose. Here's the good news. Remember how you wanted Gordon Hayward? Well, he's broken, but he's probably going to play around the same amount of games that Derrick Rose would, and it's in a different position. So here you go. Cook.
There is one other name who makes a lot of money and could be on the move this summer. He plays center.
If you say Kristaps Porzingis, I'm gonna drive to Brooklyn. Okay, phew, good.
He plays center in Utah.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to. But yes. Theoretically, it's like, hey, you want a Walt pair in 5? Like the best case scenario guy is Rudy Gobert. So, yeah. But it's just like, I just don't necessarily think that they're going to go and get a star. Although I could be totally wrong here, and maybe all this is for naught, and they get their star and they do what they need to. Just feels a little premature. This is the way to bide your time and get what you want and grow the core, add some assets, flex your spending abilities, and do what you need to do.
As a question?
Yes.
Well, first of all, did you really get me and my hopes up for Melo for nothing, Jeremy?
Sort of. But again, here's the thing. You also can still bring him back, theoretically speaking. Well, no, I mean, like, that's the thing. It's like, does he have a role? What is he going to do? But yes, there is a world, and I don't think it's a distant world, where the Knicks do trade Julius Randle, have a power forward spot open, and bring Melo back to play at the 4. I don't think that's so crazy. But yes.
But then you went to the Gordon Hayward thing where it makes more sense, and you didn't even get to write Melo's name on the Knicks roster.
You're right. Because the internet's written... Well, I didn't actually write it, but
it's not even written,
but it's not written, so it doesn't show up. So
wow, Jeremy. Also, so people, I'm trying to watch this as a listener, or I guess a viewer in this case. By the way, one thing I take for granted about this show sometimes, and how fucking intelligent you guys are. Well done. Just Jeremy obviously taking the lead. Jon, you're able to hang with him. I caught up at a certain point, but this is just brilliant by both of you guys. People are going to ask about Rokas and why he wasn't factored into the plan. So if you want to just answer that real quick.
As far as I know, the latest reporting is not reporting. He gave an interview like a month or two ago in which he kind of, I don't want to misquote him, but it was basically like, I'm not coming over to sit and fucking play for the G League.
He's right. I mean, we just did that entire scenario, and Deuce McBride is not in the rotation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if we're adding Rokas to the equation, then that's like, it's a poor use of their resources. If anything, I hope Rokas does not come over next year. If there is some large trade in 2023 that occurs and Rokas is still a member of the team and the Knicks need a backup, guard, he's perfect. Bring him in, do it. I would love to see that. But until then, let him develop in Spain where he's having a really nice season and can just, be more of a focal point there.
Okay. And then just one last follow-up. The reason you didn't name said point guard the Knicks might trade Julius Randle for, is that a tease because there may be a cap or no cap, the trade Julius Randle plan in the works?
Andrew, listen,
I'm just wetting
I
the
don't
beak
kiss
for
and
next
tell.
week if people are getting ready. Yes.
Next week will be the Julius Randle experience.
There you go.
Again, I wanted this to set the stage for everything we're going to talk about. I feel like it was impossible to talk about the things we will discuss without laying groundwork, but Julius Randle will be next. And I've already kind of, poker terms, I was bleeding a little bit, but we'll still have fun.
But one last one, just because you open the show with him as the first name there. It wouldn't be a 3-for-1 consolidation trade, but a 2-for-1 consolidation trade is possible with for Gallinari in Atlanta. With you send Burks and someone else there. Talk about a team that probably wouldn't mind having Derrick Rose on their roster. So I know we talked about sending him to a contender, and he's not one of the 3 names we just talked about. But just like, again, thinking about guys who wouldn't mind playing backup 4 in New York, who had the job of the 4 here once upon a time. It's another name.
I should add one more thing as well, because I know people are going to leave this podcast wondering about it. It's like, hey, what if you swapped out Alec Burks, Noel, and Kemba, and you did Fournier and Kemba, and then you shifted quickly to the starting 2 position? Yeah, maybe you could do that, but then you still have to find another deal that gets Nerlens Noel out of town, and maybe you can find it. That's fine, but I think that Fournier is just better as a 2 guard than as a trade chip right now. And the 3 other players together helps with not only the depth, as I've said with Charlotte, but just the money situation for them, where they can get out of it super easily.
I really would maybe not shocked if they traded Fournier. I'd be really surprised if they traded Fournier.
I would too. Yeah. Just based like the team option in the last year, that kind of tells us. Yeah, use him as a 2023. Same way that Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel are being treated, and even Derrick Rose. He's a free agent if you want him, or he's an expiring contract if you want him to be. And if you don't, he's a value deal.
Yeah. Well done, sir.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you being here with me, because I know a lot of the times it's like my mind can be a mile a minute, and you're like, hold on, let's slow down.
No, this is. I think we if you have been listening, like Andrew, trying to follow along and maybe struggling. I think the main takeaway, if I could wrap it up in one sentence, it would basically be like, for as nice as the Knicks have it right now, with a nice young core and a draft pick, and like they're going to have options, they have their work cut out for them in terms of practically getting from point A to point B. It is not going to be easy. It is going to take some creativity. It is going to take some interested parties around the league to be willing to play ball with them. Obviously, everybody, multiple parties will benefit, and there's a way to do that, as Jeremy just laid out. But like, the notion, if you were going into this offseason and be like, great, the Knicks are just going to trade all these old guys and play all the kids, it's not going to be that simple. It is going to take a lot of fucking work. Yeah. And we'll see if they can pull it off. Andrew?
Awesome. Yeah. I agree.
Andrew's eyes are glazed over.
I at a certain point, it's not that I wasn't able to follow anymore. I just was like, all right, I'm going to learn something today. You guys were not arguing, but like, going back and forth between the difference of what contract Jericho Sims would make. And I just was like, I think I've heard of these terms. I think I've heard of these contracts, but it's
I think important. No, 2 years
agree.
Versus 3 years.
I agree. It is important. I am just saying I had no idea how important it was until you guys discussed the difference between a portion of the mid-level and the biannual. And I think some other thing got mentioned. And then I think someone ordered a daily double. I'm just impressed.
Ordered a daily double.
Whatever.
A daily double.
That's how fried my brain is, John. It's Easter Sunday, and I'm a Claudio. Okay, This is basically my Super Bowl.
I just want to say this. Look, I want to have fun conversations. We certainly have plenty of fun conversations, but my goal always is when we work together is I want our listeners to feel as passionate and as smart as they can be.
Mhm.
And like, I know you're not disputing this or anything, but like,
Yeah.
my hope is that you have taken something away from this if you're listening to it, and that you can then have these arguments online or in person and just come off as a genius. Like, and I'm not saying I'm a genius. I'm just saying take my thoughts and recreate them, and like we can have smarter conversations as a result. So I know a lot is being thrown at you, but there's a reason for it, because the better that these are, the better conversations we have. Better conversations, just the more creative and yet fun we can be.
Well, this is the thing we've said, Jeremy. Like, the school of Knicks Film School is when we teach you certain things. You are learning certain things. And look, I love every single person that tags our Twitter account or tags like the three of us in a hypothetical trade. Now you know how to do it where the money makes sense. Okay. This is what Knicks Film School is going to teach you.
And I just want to say, if by some chance, the nuts and bolts of the salary cap is not your cup of tea, this was your vegetables. Tonight was your vegetables. It's going to serve as a springboard towards a lot of more. I don't say entertain, because I love this shit. But like, if you're like, okay, now let's get into some fake Julius Randle trades. Let's get into what it looks like for, them to get Jalen Brunson. Like, we're going to get to all that, but we needed to lay the groundwork first. So yeah. 101
is often the hardest class. Congratulations. You've passed 101. Now we can move on to 102. Talk about Julius Randle. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'll make those up.
Graduation from this class.
I love this. Andrew, what do we got before we go?
Oh, we're done. We're in part 2 of a 2-part episode. I'm not doing producer corner. It's okay. But I will say the one plug, I'll save it for next week, which it'll still be relevant, I hope. But the one thing I will plug, Oz and I did a bonus review today, and it's rare that I get passionate about a movie the way Oz does that isn't like, go see Spider-Man, go see Batman. Like, there's a movie out right now that I need to do better at the box office. And look, if you're still worried because we are technically still in a pandemic, God bless you. Like, there's not that many people going to see this movie, so you might actually benefit from going to an empty theater to see this.
Andrew, no one's going to see Morbius, okay?
Well, funny you bring that up, Jeremy, because too many people have gone to see Morbius over this other movie that is out. It's called Everywhere, Everything, All at Once. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Okay, I get the title mixed up. When I tell you I haven't been this passionate about a movie since like Parasite or Get Out, or a movie that just blew my mind with the humor, with the concept. It's a multiverse movie. It's an action movie. There's so much comedy. There's heart to it. There's themes to it that I think resonate with anybody. People that look like me and people that look like the cast in this movie, I think will get something out of it. Go in cold. Listen to our bonus review afterwards if you'd like to. Also listen to our review of it before, because we don't spoil anything, and just like sing the praises of this movie for 45 minutes. That is my plea, because this movie, as of right now, basically Morbius did 5 times the business that it did at the box office. I'm okay if the MCU dominates the box office. The biggest difference between me and Oz. I've accepted that they do the superhero bullshit quality. Morbius is a turd stain and should not be doing that much business. And the fact that this movie is not doing at least Morbius money is a shame on like the movie going experience. So I'm begging all of you, if you're gonna see a movie, like the weather is getting nicer, maybe you want to go out for a nice date night and then end up at a movie. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. That is my really highest recommendation. Yes, I
want to see it too. I texted you earlier that we're hopefully gonna be able to get a sitter at some point so we can see it later in the week. We're giving praise. This will be the last thing of this episode. Congratulations on completing season 1 of final review.
Yes.
You ended with, I know you're still going to do some bonus episodes for new releases and whatnot, but you completed season 1 with a banger for The Godfather.
Well, I should say that was the penultimate. We're doing Children of Men this week.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know there was one more.
Is the finale. Yes.
Okay.
I got sick last week, and then I again got engaged the week before. So I was kind of busy the last 2 weeks. So Oz and I are completing it this week with a movie that's come up in so many conversations. By the way, Jeremy dipped because we heard his smoke alarm go off. So I think we're just signing off for the night for him at least. Thank you, Jeremy.
Jeremy,
okay.
You've earned a dip, an Irish exit here. Yeah, but you guys have killed it all season long. I not that this is why you should listen to the pod, but like I know how much work you've put in to this and how much, especially you, because the difference between you and Oz is Oz has seen every movie in history already. You have not. So when it comes to like making top 5 lists about, 1972, as you spoke about on this week's episode, you have to go do your homework, and you have done the homework, and it's been a pleasure to listen to the two of you talk about movies. Again, for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, just look up Final Review. And you hear Andrew and Oz talk about a different movie, and actually like dozens of movies every week. All the episodes age well. So if you missed the whole season, you can go back and listen to it. You'll love it just the same.
I agree. Jeremy, is everything okay?
My roommate set off the smoke alarm.
Okay.
And it was just smoke everywhere.
Really? Okay.
Billows.
Yeah. My ears are still a little ringing from that, but we're good.
Smoke Monster from Lost just showed up at your house.
Very much. I'm glad that
I don't know what that is.
We're towards the end of what we're doing and not earlier on, but
yes, that would have been something if
it happens.
Cap or no cap became fire or no fire.
Or just what I was saying is so hot that it set off the smoke.
So this episode is what set it off.
That's
there you go.
That was great. Okay. This is fun. Thank you, Jeremy. Really. I mean, you always level up. So great job by you, Andrew. Thank you as always. And of course, everybody out there, thank you for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. As always, if you dig the show, feel free to drop a 5-star rating, leave us a little review, or just subscribe if you're not subscribed. Those things help us out. We will be back with another couple of episodes from me this week before me and Jeremy get together again next weekend with our usual episode. Until then, take care.